All right, good morning. You can take a seat. Welcome to Life Point Church. I'm Joe Pascal. I'm one of the pastors here. It's great to see you here and join you for worship together, whether you're joining us online or in person. I'm always glad to be here with my church family. I love worshiping God with you. And if you're not a part of our church family yet, you're checking us out for the first time or second time or third time, whatever the case may be, I want to say a very special welcome to you. I hope that you'll become a part of our church family. Hopefully you saw the new here table in the lobby on the way in. If you didn't, no problem. You can check it out on the way out. That'll give us a chance to welcome you in person. And, you know, as you're checking us out, trying to get to know us, we know that we got to, share information with you so you can know more about us. We've got a church, we've got an app. It's called Church Center. We've got our website. You've probably already been to our website to check us out. But I would encourage you to take out your phone right now and use your phone to scan the QR code that's on the screen and on the seat back in front of you. That takes you to our digital guide. Our digital guide has lots of information about us. You can get to know us. It also has a place there right at the top where you can connect with us. And you can let us know you've been here. If you got a prayer request, a question, that's how we can interact. That'd be a great thing for you to do. So as you're getting to know us, it's important to know what our mission is. Our mission is really important to us, and that is we influence people to find and follow Jesus. And we do that in a lot of different ways. Can't talk about them all, but let me tell you about one, and that's by being generous. We want to be. It's all about ourselves. Our culture wants us to focus on our needs, ourselves, our wants, our opinions. But let's be different than that. Let's not follow that pattern. Let's follow Jesus and be generous towards others. Now, we are heading into a time of year where it's getting colder, and Thanksgiving and Christmas, and then we're going to give you two great opportunities to be generous towards others. We have two donation drives coming up. The first donation drive is about Thanksgiving. If you're in a community group, you're going to hear more about this because we're inviting our community groups to do this. This is about the 5th or 6th year that we've been partnering with Greater Liberty Baptist Church. That's a church down in Baltimore. We've been, for a few years, gathering the things needed to make a Thanksgiving meal. We put them in a Thanksgiving basket, give them to the Greater Liberty Baptist Church, and they distribute them to families in Baltimore. So it's a great opportunity to do that. If you're in a community group, you'll hear more about that. And then the second opportunity is for everyone else. Starting next weekend, November 3rd, we're going to be doing our shelter drive. So this is where we talk to the shelters that we support all the way from Baltimore to Westminster, find out what their needs are, and then we receive those donations here and we distribute them to multiple shelters around the area. So next weekend you're going to see donation bins in the lobby, and there will be a list, like a shopping list of things they need printed there, and you can take that and then bring those back in and put them in the bin. Or if you want to get head start, all that shelter drive information is in the digital guide. So you can look at that right now and see what is needed there and bring stuff in next week. So we don't have to be so concerned about ourselves and our own desires and our own wants and how we're going to survive. We can focus on others and be generous towards others because Jesus is our foundation, and Jesus is a firm foundation. And no matter how uncertain things may seem, we can be glad because we have put our trust in Jesus. Will you stand and worship Him with me today?
I've self-loathing. You've owned the voices inside of your head. You've owned the shame and reproach of your failure. It's time to own your belovedness. You've owned your past and how it's defined you. You've owned everything everybody else says. It's time to hear what your Father has spoken. It's time to own your belovedness. He says you're mine. I smiled when I made you. I find you beautiful in every way. My love for you is fierce and unending. I'll come to find you, whatever it takes, my beloved. my beloved. It's time to own your belovedness. Te amo, Dios. Tu amor nunca me falla. Mi existir en tus manos está. Desde el momento en que despierto hasta el anochecer, yo cantaré de la bondad de Dios. En mi vida ha sido bueno. En mi vida ha sido
Later, the Lord spoke to Abram in a vision. Abram, don't be afraid. I will protect you and reward you greatly. But Abram answered, Lord all-powerful, you have given me everything I could ask for, except children. And when I die, Eliezer of Damascus will get all I own. You have not given me any children, and this servant of mine will inherit everything. The Lord replied, No, he won't. You will have a son of your own, and everything you have will be his. Then the Lord took Abram outside and said, Look at the sky and see if you can count the stars. That's how many descendants you will have.
Hey, I hope you're ready for game time, and I'm not talking about the massacre that's happening at 1 o'clock when my team plays the Ravens. It's gonna be really ugly today. Not good at all. I'm not looking forward to that one. But this is for you. Like, this is a game I want you to participate in. I'm going to show you 5 pictures, and I want you to shout out as loudly as you can, like, what you think this thing is. You're probably going to catch on to what these things are at some point while we're playing together. If you're watching online on YouTube, you got to be extra loud so that I can hear you. Or you can put it in the chat, whichever you'd like. But I'm going to show you some pictures, and I just want you to tell me what it is that you think you're looking at, okay? Here's the first one. No cheating if you were in the first service. Dragons are not real, so how could it be a picture of a dragon? An orc? No, that's not it. No, this is an actual photograph of an ant. This is the face of an ant really up close. Isn't that terrifying? Like an orc or a dragon? No, this is an ant. This is not the way the ants looked on A Bug's Life, right? Or Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, if that's more your era. Here's the second picture. Okay. Any guesses? I think I heard it over here. You found the same website I did, didn't you? Yeah. This is a cat's tongue. This is a close-up photo of a cat's tongue. You ever had a cat lick you? Have you ever had that good fortune? When I was a young adult, I had never had a cat lick me until I visited Megan's house, who she would become my wife, and she had a cat named Bentley. And Bentley came and licked me, which I took to be a good sign. But I thought that cat was gonna die, like it had some disease, because I did not know cats' tongues were like that, like super coarse. It's like lots of little tongues that are licking you at once. It's weird. Okay, here's the third picture. What do you think this is? Oh, yeah, okay, I heard sugar or salt. So now you're catching on to what this is. These zoomed up microscopic images. This is table salt. These are individual little grains of salt. Isn't that amazing? I mean, who knew they were in these perfect little cubes with these little weird designs and shapes? It's like somebody put that together. Isn't that wild? Okay, here's the fourth picture. See if you can figure this one out. You got just 2 more chances. I don't know what that was. I think I'm hearing people talk about skin, so you're definitely on the right track. This is skin, but this is skin that's had a needle poked into it and then taken out. And some of you are afraid of needles, and now all of us are afraid of needles, because this is what it looks like. This is actually from a tattoo needle that was stuck in just that upper layer of skin, and then it's pulled out. This is what happens, a giant gouge in your skin when a needle pokes in. Okay, here's the final 5th photograph. I bet you'll get this one. Oh, sure, an eye. Yeah, you knew that one right away. This is an eyeball. But doesn't it, like, if you just saw this on its own without these other ones, it looks like something in space, like a black hole or something. These photographs were all taken using special instruments like electron microscopes that are able to zoom in and see things that we can't see, that we would never notice with our naked eye, just with our naked eye. Just looking at something, we would never be able to see the detail in these different photographs. I don't know about you, but I find these pictures, all 5 of them, they're both beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Like it's amazing to consider the detail that goes into the building blocks of life and the way that everything is constructed. But it's also, I mean, if you ran into that ant, you would not be happy. This is frightening. It's like, that's really what my eyeball looks like? I didn't know that. It's kind of, well, it's very creepy. We're in this series following Abraham and Sarah on their journey, their travels, but really while they're walking with God. And it's almost as if different scenes and experiences from their life have been sliced up and laid on top of a slide, and we're able to look down on them with an electron microscope, and we can zoom into the details of what their life with God really looked like, of how it worked. We're able to see the inner workings. We notice the failures and bad decisions, and we notice the successes and positive choices they made. We're able to see the beauty of faithfulness to God and of God's faithfulness. But we also see the terror, the sheer terror of doubt and fear and big failures and mistakes that characterize their relationship with God. And that's also, well, it's a lot like what our life looks like with God. Because isn't it a terrifying prospect to imagine that your life could be sliced up and placed on a slide and zoomed in with a spiritual microscope so that other people can actually see what's going on in your life, in your heart, in your mind, in your choices, and in your relationship with God? This is really important for us. It's why we're going through this series. If you are on the opposite side of faith, you've been exploring what it means to trust in Jesus, it's really important for you to be paying attention to this because you want to know what you're getting into before you say yes to Jesus. And if you've been a long-time Jesus follower, it is just as vital for you to really pay attention to Abraham and Sarah's life, because it's way too easy for us to get distracted and to drift away from our calling and from our relationship with God. It's easy for us to miss the whole point of it and get off on the wrong path the same way that Abraham and Sarah did. And so today we're zooming in to particular events in Genesis chapter 13 and 14 that demonstrate to us what a life of faith really looks like. We're going to look at features that most people wouldn't notice from the outside. But these events are sliced up and put on a slide in front of us so that we can zoom in and recognize characteristics that we might miss otherwise. Last weekend, Patrick kicked us off and taught us about God's call to Abraham and Sarah and how they left their home and they trusted in God's promise. God promised them big things, land and descendants and blessing, that through them all people on the earth would be blessed. And they responded with faith, and they followed that faith up with failure. They really messed up, and they left the land that God had promised them. They went to Egypt and made some more bad decisions and fell into deceit. And now in chapter 13, we find them coming back to the path that God has called them to. We're going to read part of the story and then really focus in at the end of chapter 14. And I'm going to tell you part of the story and fill in the gaps. So if you have a Bible or an app you can open up, find your way to Genesis 13 and Genesis 14, because you'll want to check up on me and make sure I get the details right. So we're going to read Genesis 13, these first few verses. So Abram left Egypt and traveled north into the Negev, the desert area, along with his wife, Sarah, and Lot, and all that they owned. Abram was very rich in livestock, silver, and gold. From the Negev, they continued traveling by stages. If you highlight or underline things on your device or Bible, then highlight this, traveling by stages. We're going to come back to that idea later on, toward Bethel. And they pitched their tents between Bethel and Ai, where they had camped before. So here in Genesis chapter 13, we find Abram and Sarai, later they're called Abraham and Sarah. We find them getting back on the path that God laid out for them, that God called them to. And they are retracing their steps. They're traveling north from Egypt into the land that would one day become Israel. But not everything went very well for them as they came back into the land. Abram was traveling with his nephew Lot, and they were both becoming prosperous and wealthy. They had lots of herds of sheep and goats and livestock, as well as gold and silver. And the shepherds who worked for Lot and the shepherds who worked for Abram started fighting with each other, open conflict over the best grazing grounds and water rights. And Abram said, this isn't going to work. Well, we got to do something different. So Lot, my nephew, I want you to look out into this land that God has promised us. And I want you to choose the part that you'll take your livestock into, and I'll go somewhere else. And we'll stay friends and connected, but we'll have a little bit of space between us because sometimes that works best for families. And Lot, he said, he looked out there and he saw this land, and he decided to choose land that was at the very edge of what God promised and beyond the borders of what would define the boundary lines of the land that God had promised to Abram. And he said, I'm going to go over there because this Jordan Valley area, it's well watered, it's fruitful, there's lots of good grazing, pasture land. I'm going to go over toward the east. And so Abram went west and traveled into the Judean hills, and they had peace between themselves. But in chapter 14, the story gets really exciting. I want to read the beginning of chapter 14. About this time, war broke out in the region. King Amraphel of Babylonia, King Arioch of Elasar, King Chedorlaomer of Elam, and King Tidal of Goyim fought against King Bera of Sodom, King Bersha of Gomorrah, King Shinab of Admah, King Shemeber of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, also called Zor. I put this in here just to prove I could do it and say all those different names. The first service clapped for me. It's okay that you didn't. It doesn't hurt my feelings at all. So what's happening here, these four kings, they're coming from the east and the north of the land that would become Israel. They're coming from modern day Iran and Iraq and Syria, Lebanon, even as far as Turkey. And these are kings of city-states that are joining together. And for about 12 years, they've become accustomed to receiving tribute from these 5 city-states and kings that are in the Jordan Valley. Because at some point in the past, these kings from the north and the east, they came in and defeated the kings in the Jordan Valley and these city-states. And so they've owed tribute. Well, at some point, these 5 kings decided, you know what? We're not paying our bills anymore. Inflation's up and things are just too tight. And so these 4 kings, they sent those accounts into collection, and that was not a good thing. They came to collect. So they gathered up their troops, and they came to destroy everything and take everything back with them, back to their land. They won a huge victory. These Jordan Valley kings, they weren't very good at fighting, and they all ran away when they saw these kings from the north and the east, from Babylon, from Turkey, all these different places that are coming against them. Some of them ran up into the mountains and got away. Others, they either fell into, or more likely, they lowered themselves into these huge tar pits. They were pits that had been dug out to pull out tar or bitumen and asphalt and different substances that we'll actually talk about in a few weeks, a little bit later on. They basically hid. They were cowards. These kings from the north and east, they took all the possessions, all the livestock, everything valuable, including the people. They took the people back to be their slaves and vassals. And Lot was living in these Jordan Valley cities, and they took him and his family too. But as we learned in The Godfather, they didn't know who they were with. They just didn't know who he was with. And so I want you to find out what happens a little bit later on in Genesis 14. When Abram heard that his nephew Lot had been captured, he mobilized the 318 trained men who had been born into his household. Then he pursued Chedorlaomer's army until he caught up with them at Dan. This is actually really exciting. This is really cool. 318 trained men doesn't sound like a lot to us because we live in a world full of people with massive armies. But in this time, this was the early to middle Bronze Age, when people were just now gathering into cities and building walls to protect themselves. This number of troops, that would have been what a good, healthy city-state would be able to produce and send to battle. So each one of these different kings, they probably had 300 to 400 troops, something like that. And Abram has that many in his household. And he's able to join up with 3 other allies that we find out about a little bit later. They march about 120, 130 miles. Here it just tells us they caught up with him at Dan. He marched from the Judean hills all the way up to the far northern border of what would one day become Israel. about 120 miles. That's a long way with these troops. And there, he divided his men and attacked during the night. So this is exciting. They've got this long march. They got to pull the troops together. They march and march and march, and then at night they attack. And Chedorlaomer's army fled, but Abram chased them as far as Hobah, north of Damascus. That's another 30 more miles or so. So all these armies from these kings of the north and east, they take off running. And Abram and his allies and his army, they chase them for 30 miles, running them down. And they're recovering everything that was lost. Abram recovered all the goods that had been taken. And he brought back his nephew Lot with his possessions and all the women and all the other captives. And after Abram returned from his victory over Chedorlaomer and all his allies, the king of Sodom, one of those Jordan Valley cities, one of the guys who ran away, went out to meet him in the valley of Shaveh. That is the King's Valley. We believe this is the Kidron Valley that lies just outside of the modern-day city of Jerusalem. And Melchizedek, the king of Salem, which is thought to have been the early settlement that would become Jerusalem. He was the king of Salem. His name means king of righteousness or just king. And he was a priest of God Most High. If you highlight things in an app or a Bible, highlight this, God Most High, because we're going to talk about that a little later. He brought Abram some bread and wine. And Melchizedek blessed Abram with this blessing. Blessed be Abram by God Most High, the creator of heaven and earth. And blessed be God Most High. He's the one who has defeated your enemies for you. Then Abram gave Melchizedek a tenth of all the goods he had recovered. And the king of Salem, Melchizedek, said to Abram, the king of Sodom said to Abram, give back my people who were captured, but you may keep for yourself all the goods you have recovered. Now, this is a really good translation, and it's smooth, contemporary English. The Hebrew words here are much more crude and terse and even rude. The king of Sodom is placed in contrast to the king of Salem, and he only speaks 6 words. He basically says, give me people, you take goods. It just says 6 words, and he's rude in the way that he does it. He's creating a transactional relationship with Abram. Abram replied to the king of Sodom, I solemnly swear to the Lord God Most High, creator of heaven and earth, that I will not take so much as a single thread or sandal thong from what belongs to you. Otherwise, you might say, look, I'm the one who made Abram rich. I will accept only what my young warriors have already eaten, and I request that you give a fair share of the goods to my allies, Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre. What an epic story. This is amazing. There's so much going on here with battles and victories and losses. And then there's a subtext when Abram has these conversations with the king of Salem, Melchizedek, and the king of Sodom. And one of them, he's showing great honor. They're exchanging honor back and forth. And with the king of Sodom and Abram, they don't like each other. There's contempt passing back and forth in the ways that they are communicating. This is an amazing story. And what we're doing this morning is placing it on a slide and putting it underneath an electron microscope for our spiritual lives, because we want to draw out some observations and principles that help us understand what a life of faith, of trusting in God, of following in Jesus really looks like. We want to notice some characteristics that are underneath the surface of this story, so that in our own life, in our own challenges, with our own successes and failures, we get a better picture of what a life of faith really looks like. So first, a life of faith recognizes that we follow God one step at a time. Just one. You remember at the beginning of Genesis 13, those verses we read, when Abram and his household are getting back on the path God called them to and had for them, they traveled by stages. They were following along on waypoints with different villages and towns that were in the Negev region, which is today just a barren desert. But archaeologists have found settlements that go back to this time period, where people were able to live, where the earth was able to sustain them. And there were waypoints that they were able to hit along the way that helped them know they were headed back up north to the land that would become Israel. And they just took it one step at a time. They traveled by stages. And there's an important lesson for us as we try to follow God throughout our lives. We just follow him by stages, one step at a time. Can you imagine walking along, a desert trail, one step at a time, day after day? And along the way, they got in fights with each other. They didn't get along. All the different members of the household, they got on each other's nerves and they entered into open conflict. And Abram was a successful businessman. He had 318 trained soldiers, people who were able to fight. So just imagine how big could his whole household have been. And he had all these flocks and herds, and he had to keep all of this going. And he had to find good pastures to feed all of those different animals. He had to trade in order to sustain all the people that he was traveling with. He was just living regular life, one step at a time. And sometimes when we read these epic stories, we get the idea that to live a life of Jesus following and of faith in God, we have to live some kind of radical, unearthly type of existence. And that's just not true, because God meets you and me in the ordinary moments of life, in just the regular parts of life. For most of us, a life of following God, it doesn't look like selling everything we have and moving to another country or starting a church somewhere else. For some people, that might be what God calls them to, but for most of us, it means going to school and learning and doing your best and getting a job and working hard and investing in your friendships and developing healthy relationships with other people. If you marry, it means being faithful to your spouse. For some of us, it means raising kids and looking after them and doing our best to help them throughout life and then enjoying grandkids. God meets us in the ordinary moments of life, and we follow Jesus just one step at a time. So be patient. You might have to slow down. You might need to learn to appreciate the moment that you're in. Don't become distracted by what might happen 10 steps ahead of you. And don't become overwhelmed by what's 5 years or 50 years in your past. You have a moment right now that God has put in front of you and asked you to follow him faithfully and be obedient to him. And you can only take one step at a time. Find that step and take it. Discipleship and following Jesus, it's a lot less complicated than sometimes we make it out to be, and that a lot of the books make it out to be. It's just following him one step of faith at a time. Second, and this is going to get harder, this is where it starts becoming more terrifying. Rulers are temporary, but our King, well, he reigns forever. And this is both beautiful and terrifying. Like, put this under an electron microscope and let's think about it for just a little while. One of my favorite little poems. It says, "The tusks which clashed in mighty brawls of mastodons are billiard balls. The sword of Charlemagne the Just is ferric oxide known as rust. The grizzly bear whose potent hug was feared by all is now a rug. Great Caesar's bust is on the shelf, and I don't feel so well myself." That poem is titled "On the Vanity of Earthly Greatness." Everything becomes dust and rust at one time or another. In Genesis chapter 14, if we read that whole chapter, 28 times in that chapter, we will find the word king. There's kings from the north and the east. There's kings in the Jordan Valley, and we're talking about them a lot. 28 different times. They dominate that story. At the end of the chapter, 4 times we find the name God Most High, but what we discover is that God Most High is the one who defeats all the other kings. He's the one who gives the victory to Abram. All these other kings, they're talked about over and over and over, but at the end, they're just lost because God Most High is the one who reigns forever. All those kings that we named, all of their life and people around them, they bent to their will. Life took shape around their desires and their influence. Try to imagine what it might have been like living at this time in the Bronze Age. And you're living in one of these Jordan Valley cities, and you look out on the horizon or maybe up over the hills, and one day you see a little puff of a dust cloud, and you wonder what that is. And then that cloud starts getting bigger and bigger, and you keep watching it until you finally know what that is. That's the kings that we stopped sending tribute to, and now they're coming with soldiers, maybe more than 1,000 of them, and they are coming to take everything. They're coming for you and your spouse and your children and your possessions, and they are only going to leave misery behind. That's what it was like to live during this time period in human history. They lived with a primal existential fear that most of us have never had to encounter or live with. But maybe you have. Maybe you do know that fear. Because we live in a time when the powerful want to control you and me and everybody else through fear and manipulation. Stop and think about it and take a look at it. And I want you to trust me for just a moment because I'm your pastor and I care about you. And so I want to lean into this particular part of our lives that can be very sensitive. We're deep into election season. A week from Tuesday, there's going to be an election, and the election is not going to be over next Tuesday, more than likely. It's going to keep going. And on one side, there are those who want you to be afraid that if the other side wins, that the whole nation is going to descend into weakness and insignificance, that it means the end of morality, that it's the end of having a country, that it's sliding into a nation with non-existent borders. And the other side wants you to be afraid that if the other guy wins, that the nation will descend into chaos, where the rule of law has ended, and the Constitution has no power, and a government will rise that will strip away basic human rights from everybody. And both sides want you and want everybody else to see a little dust cloud on the horizon and become very afraid. I'm here to remind you that rulers come and go, but there's one king who reigns forever. And I am not here to make you a disciple of Republicans or Democrats. I want to help you follow Jesus. And this is a uniquely difficult time to do that for all Christians, because we all have political views. I have political views and inclinations. Mine just happen to be the right ones, and so it's tempting for me to try to influence yours so that you can have the right ones too. I mean, don't you want that? But that's not my calling. That's not what God has tasked me with. We all have political views. Political views are like butts. We all have them. Sometimes they get way more attention than they deserve, but they're best when you just sit on them, right? So I read this week from one influential pastor, and he wrote and said something like, to other Christians, if your pastor in your church is not teaching you about politics right now, then he's a coward and you should find another church. Whenever the Church of Jesus Christ has married itself to a political party or a platform or a personality, the church's witness to Jesus is lost and its spiritual power is weakened. Look around at our country, and isn't it astounding that as the church, or what's recognized the church as the church, has risen in political power, the followers of Jesus in our country have actually declined. That is not an accident. So my role for you, it's not to help you become more of a Republican or more of a Democrat. It's to help you remember you don't have to be afraid. Because it doesn't really matter who wins this next election. I don't know who's going to win. Nobody knows who's going to win. But there will still be one king who is on the throne. And so you and I don't have to be afraid of this little dust cloud on the horizon, no matter what's inside of it, and no matter how chaotic it feels. Stop being afraid, because we worship God Most High, not any temporary ruler. Kedorlaomer, Birsha, Bera, Tidal, king of Goyim, all these people, you know why we read their names? It's because they're meaningless and they don't matter. They're all dust and rust. And you can substitute any other names you want to. Trump and Kamala and Biden and Obama and Clintons and Bush. Put their names in there. Because beneath God Most High, they all become insignificant. Stop being afraid. Our King is the one who reigns forever. So I don't want to end on this note. I want to talk about something that makes us all much more comfortable: money. So that's what I'm just going for it all today. So this third idea, blessing comes through giving more than taking. There's a beautiful contrast that these stories relate between Abram and the people around him, and also between the king of Salem and the king of Sodom. The king of Sodom comes out with a transactional relationship, and he says, give. So this is a guy who just climbed up out of a tar pit when he was running away from these other kings, and he's facing Abram with his soldiers who just won a great victory, and he doesn't have the good sense to show a little bit of respect. Instead, he comes out to Abram and makes a demand and says, you give me the people, you can take the goods. He's just in this giving and taking mentality and relationship. The king of Salem, Melchizedek, the righteous king, he comes out with a totally different perspective, and he's bringing bread and wine. He brings gifts that are suitable for a king, and he comes out praising God Most High, the one that he worshiped, and he reminds Abram, you didn't win this victory. God Most High gave it to you. So let's celebrate. And then Abram, when he understands that everything he possesses, all the gold and silver, all the cattle, his massive household, all the good things, the good gifts that have come into his life, these are actually gifts from God Most High. He turns around and becomes a giver. And he gives to Melchizedek a tithe, 10% of all the spoils of war to help serve in the worship of God Most High. While this king of Sodom, all he can think about is this transaction. And Abram says, I'm not taking anything from you. I'm not going to owe you anything because I know you. And I'm not going to have you holding this over my head and bragging to other people about how you made me rich. I'm not taking anything. You'll have to deal with my allies and settle up with them, and you guys can figure that out on your own. But I'm taking nothing from you. And instead, Abram became a giver. When we understand, when we really understand, and this is part of following Jesus, and this is a terrifying little slide on the electron microscope, when we understand that everything we are, everything we have, everything we enjoy is a gift from God, that turns us into people who automatically respond by giving, by sharing, by finding a percentage of our wealth and giving it to support what God is doing in this world. Abram's perspective was unique and different from most of those around him because Melchizedek was able to remind him, all these good things you're enjoying, Abram, it's a gift from God Most High. And as a sign of his faith in God to keep providing, Abraham was able to give away really a ridiculous amount. It's no different for us. And here's what's terrifying. Like if our financial management was put on a microscope slide and others were invited to look into how we manage what God has given to us, what conclusions would they draw about our faith? That can be terrifying. But it can also be beautiful when we realize that even when we give a small amount, that small amount is an expression of trust in God to continue providing. Zooming into a life of faith is just as beautiful and terrifying as looking at an ant's face or a close-up image of an eyeball. It allows us to recognize characteristics that we might miss otherwise. It teaches us that we're following God just one step at a time. So be patient and be faithful in this particular moment. Don't be distracted by the past or the future. Stop being afraid. Because all these temporary rulers come and go, but our King reigns forever. And when we trust God and we keep following him, we become givers more than takers. But we become givers because we've already received so much from God. Oh, God Most High, the creator of heaven and earth, the one who reigns from eternity past to eternity yet to come, we praise you. Sometimes it's hard for us to take just one step at a time. It's tempting for us to look back or to look ahead, to be filled with anxiety. Help us not to do that, but to live in the moment that you've given to us right now and to be faithful in that moment to obey you. Help all of us remember that you're the King who reigns forever. Your throne has no ending. And so we don't have to be afraid. We don't have to fear what's coming next, because whatever that is, we know that you're the one who reigns over it, and we can keep trusting in you. Make us people who give. Make us people who are influencing others to recognize your reign and your rule. We praise you that you're our King who won the victory. You're the Lion who conquers evil. You claimed a throne through your death and resurrection. And so we praise you, our King who reigns and our Lion who roars.
Great I am, King of angels, Son of man, voice of many waters, song of heaven's throne, louder than the thunder, make your glory known. Hail, hail, Lion of Judah, let the lion roar. Hail, hail, Lion of Judah, oh mountain, be made low, oh valley, be raised up, oh mountain, be made low.
Jesus Christ is the Lion of Judah who claimed his throne by defeating the strongest enemy, death, by overcoming evil, by raising back to life in the resurrection and offering that new life to all of us. If you're ready to trust in Jesus for the first time, or maybe you're trying to take your next faithful step to follow Jesus in this moment that you're in right now, you can find someone on either side of the worship center space, a caring friend who'd love to talk with you and pray with you about trusting Jesus for the first time or for this next time in your own life. And if you would like to begin giving or to examine your giving, then you can give at Life Point Church in a variety of ways. There's secure offering boxes in the back of the worship center space near the entrances and exits and out in the lobby. You can also give at lifepointchurch.us or through the Church Center app. You can even text to give, and you can mail it in. There's all kinds of different ways that you can discover on the website. We'll take it any way you want to give it. So you can just look it up and find a way that you can participate in giving, and you can share to help support what God is doing at Life Point Church. Now, we'll continue walking with Abraham and Sarah next weekend, so I hope to see you come back next week. And now to our King, eternal, immortal, invisible, the only wise God, be honor and glory forever and ever. Amen. See you next weekend.